Hey guys, we've got two laptops here with us today, Dell Latitude 7400 and Dell Latitude 7490. We'll take a look at the outside of the laptop. Firstly, this metal finish is quite nice. I think over time the rubberized lid of the older generation, it can wear, and some people don't like that as much. So I mean, this one, it feels a little bit colder in winter, but I think some people might prefer it. Might look better in the meetings, etc. Look quite similar to the XPS build. But if you do tap it, it still sounds quite plasticky, if that makes sense. Okay, if we just try to illustrate the size difference between these two laptops, start from the side. So if I pull it back a little bit, so just on the edge, you can see it's almost a centimeter of extra space saving. And if we look at from the side as well, it's noticeable, isn't it? It's due to the thinner bezel. Okay, now onto the ports. This is where there's some trade-offs to achieve this light and thin. Quite obviously, you'll notice this, it's one fewer USB 3 port overall. It's a trade-off. As you can see, the internal SIM card tray is no longer there. And additionally, this is a more crucial one. The Ethernet port is gone. Just wow. If you consider this is a business laptop, having an Ethernet port there would have just been more reassuring. And the SIM card tray, I think there's an external USB adapter or something similar. Moreover, Dell sells a USB-C 90 watts version of the charger in addition to the regular charger. So you have the option to use a USB-C if you preferred for fast charging. One of the change you might notice, it's quite subtle, is that if we push the lid beyond this point, you'll notice the base gradually moving up. And if we push it back in, I think this might be a space-saving feature. It gives the chassis a little bit more cooling if it's used on a desk. But this is only noticeable when you push it beyond really the eye level of viewing. So it might be that you don't notice it as much. I think this is one of those features that's been ported back from Latitude 7370. So if you can see, this is 7370. So it has the same lift-up feature. And I think it's quite a neat feature. The only caveat is basically this rubberized point, which lifts up the base, whether that's going to wear off over time. I think only time will tell on that. And on the base, plenty of fan space. As you can see, it's not as easy to smudge as some of the laptops you see, for instance, the ThinkPads, etc. What you'll probably notice immediately is just how thin this bezel is compared to the old one. That's perhaps saying something, that the older model's bezel was quite noticeably normal sized. If we look at the base of it, it's actually not much difference, but by the time you reach the top, it's noticeable. Also from the side, as we've seen earlier, the space saving is definitely noticeable. Beyond that, it's above that you can see there's a new privacy shutter. That's quite nice. The small printing, if you see, is quite an intricate mechanism. So it's easier to use than the ThinkPad version, maybe not as easy to use as the HP one, which is just slide over. But I think having this feature is just quite nice. And here, as usual, you have the mic kill button. It's usual, it's on the older model as well, but it's quite nice. A light comes on. Whatever display you get, we will probably suggest staying away from the TN panel, which is a 13660 by 768. The resolution is just a little bit low in 2019. Core i5, in my opinion, is quite a decent compromise between value and performance. Turbo boost might not be as fast, but it's plenty sufficient. It's also the quad core. It's just the cache is a little bit smaller. Of course, if you were to want to get the i7 from day one, that's the option there. For the RAM, because it's quite easily serviceable, if it were me personally, I'd just get 1x16 and possibly upgrade later. Your mileage may vary, some may prefer get it from day one. The SSD is easily replaceable. Of course, some people would prefer to have an encrypted option or a specific option. Whilst scrolling down, I was looking at the trackpad. It's not too smooth, if that makes sense. There's some inertia and it just feels, rubbing it, it feels a little bit resistance, but that's probably just me. So this system on its own, if we were to review it without knowing anything about the predecessor, we would say it's quite a decent machine in 2019. If we were to previous owner, so you'll probably notice some drop in functionality, the Ethernet, one fewer USB port. So the SIM straight issue. So it's not clear cut if you're coming from the most recent generation. It's definitely thinner and lighter. There's some prices to pay to achieve that. Obviously, you no longer have the 2-point trackpad. There seems to be just generally some compromises attached to being thin and light. Of course, if you're coming from 7480 and anything older than that, it's a very reasonable system because you get double the core count and more modern design. When you compare this machine to other laptops in this generation, each brand would have their own strengths. So for instance, Lenovo is great for the ThinkPad keypad. Their display on the T480, especially on Carbon, you have the HDR option. On Dell's XPS line, some business users still prefer that. You get even thinner and lighter design. Whereas on the HP, the 840 G5 or G6, it's a perfectly competent machine. I think part of this will come down to brand preference and what you're already used to using. If you're used to using a ThinkPad, then you might not be as happy switching to a Dell. But between HP, Dell and Lenovo, in terms of warranty support on the business tier, they're all quite similar if you pay for the specific contracts. The battery on this laptop, as you can expect of a Dell Business Ultra Portable, is very good. So 60 watts hour battery. One of the quite useful thing with the Latitude, obviously if you frequently travel to the airport, is just to disable the Wi-Fi, put it onto power saving mode, use the Dell power management tool to put it into further power saving. That way you can be connected for quite a long time. As you can see, it just jumped again. I think we're on maximum brightness. You can expect from this class of ultra portable, there's going to be very little to choose from. This model, it doesn't have dedicated graphics, which takes lots of power. So if you need work done and you're away from your desk, this is a very good system to have. I will probably suggest getting a refurb of the 7490 in the sense that personally, Ethernet port is quite an important one for me. If you want to get something today, something thin and light that looks great in the office, that perhaps you don't mind the adapter for, then this is a very good option. This will also have the new display options, for instance, the low power display and also the privacy shutter. All in all, it's a very good machine. I think for the next generation, it would be really good if Dell can improve the speaker, whether they can add back the trackpad. Obviously, user feedback has suggested with them that it is superfluous to the needs. It's a feature that some users might really miss. If there's any question, just give us a shout. We'll be happy to get to it. Thank you.